I am not Team Cap, I am not Team Iron Man, I am Team America. Wait a minute. Hey everyone, David here. So Captain America Civil War has arrived. Here's my review. I actually got a comment asking me where it was, and I said in my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review, in case you didn't watch that it was going to be a little late because sadly I did not reserve my tickets for Thursday night back when they were made available in that second trailer when Spider-Man finally got unveiled and everybody went batshit crazy. Batshit. How ironic. Anyways, Civil War has arrived. Here's my review. It was awesome. Okay, I guess I should go ahead and preface it with what the movie is kind of sort of about in case you have been under a rock and missed all those trailers. Captain America, Civil War. The world is trying to absorb why superheroes are running all over the place trying to save us when in reality they're also causing damage at the same time. An issue that is always tackled when superheroes are involved in almost any type of medium these days, and it's honestly one of my favorite subjects when it does come to superhuman powered people. And so we tackle this subject matter in the form of this film in which Captain America tries to take his team of the new Avengers after the events of Age of Ultron and use them for missions across the world in hopes of delivering justice and bringing in the bad guys. But while he's doing this, there are some collateral issues. There are some collateral damage being spread out across the world, and people are afraid, being said by General Thunderbolt Ross. And it is here where a divide is formed amongst the Avengers between Captain America's team that is opposed, registering superheroes underneath the control of the government and being supervised and sanctioned just for them, or operating under their own terms, which is being opposed by Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, and his group of people that do believe people need to be put in check in order to keep more people like the people in Sokovia or the people in New York or in the most recent cases in Wakanda alive as much as possible. And this is where we get our Civil War. Now, here's the deal. That's what the trailers make it out to be. However, there's a couple of components in the film because there's so much going on in this movie. And trust me, I don't want to pinpoint every single detail just yet because this is just an overall review, and if I even try to do that, I'm going to be here for a good hour. And that's where my spoiler cast will come into play, which will hopefully be up by the end of the weekend. Be on the lookout for that, and I'll talk about it at the end of this review. But anyways, I'm not going to pick apart every single little thing, but let's just say that so much is going on in this movie that in the hands of any other writer or any other filmmaker, it could have fallen apart. Batman versus Superman. Sorry guys, you remember I was trying to get over a cold. Anyways, what really surprised me about this movie, however, is that there is so much going on. Something that I didn't mention in that little brief synopsis is the fact that we do have Bucky, aka the Winter Soldier, running around, and Steve, Captain America, is trying to reel him back in and hopefully put him on the good side for once. And that storyline is happening while at the same time this stuff with Iron Man and this little Sokovia Accords is happening, which is this little document that they have to sign in order to be part of the government to operate legally, and which again is an interesting subject matter all on its own. I'm sorry. And then there's another character that has a little agenda. I'm not going to mention who this character is because even this character's not even in the trailers, and I'm glad because I'm like, okay, this is a very surprising element. What surprised me about the film, however, is that it perfectly blends all of these stories together to form a very fluid experience from beginning to end that feels like a very genuine adaptation of that Civil War comic. Now, I will say I sadly have not read Civil War, the actual comic that this is based on. I am, however, aware that in that comic book, because they don't have to deal with copyright issues or rights issues, anything like that, every single superhero from the Marvel Universe, the Marvel Universe is in that book, and it's a very global thing, and I get that. Here, it's restricted to, I mean, you've seen those memes where people post a panel from the comic book where it has every single, like, the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, everybody, and then they put an image of the movie, and it's just, like, them fighting in the airport. It's just, like, 5-on-5, like a basketball team. I get it, but still, it works for this film because it not only does it feel like one fluid experience, but along the ride, the writers, Joe and Anthony Russo, and the directors as well, they know how to handle these characters where everybody gets set up. Even if they had films prior to this film. Iron Man, Captain America, they each, Iron Man has 3 movies, and we're still learning new stuff about him in this movie. Captain America, we already had 2 films about him. Something happens in his life here in this movie that really does strike him to the core. So many characters have their moment in their spotlight, especially some of the new people that are introduced. Yes, let's go ahead and talk about them. Black Panther, Spider-Man steal the show in this movie. They are tremendous. And to be honest, between the two, I found, in terms of presentation and badassness, Spider-Man was the best. The scene that he has with him in the airport fighting along all those heroes is outstanding. However, as a compelling character, Black Panther, however, dominated because both, and not just Black Panther, but both of these characters that were being introduced, unlike other movies, they don't just drop into the story. They get built up. And without going into spoilers, at least not just yet, both of these characters, when they get introduced into this movie, they're not in costume. They're looking like regular people, and they get the most humane introduction ever, where you see them as just normal people. You get conversations with them, and that's where this movie got it right for these characters to fit into the story. And for people that say that, they just fit all these... I saw a review saying that there were too many heroes in this movie. Really? Too many heroes? Yeah, first of all, it's called Civil War. And second of all, you actually get to know them. They're not just sprinkled in here and there. And some of these people that you already seen in prior movies, they have a little scene to build them up. Especially some of the background characters that you were expecting to just pop in there and be like, oh, hey, I got a call here, I'm just showing up. Even some of them have at least one tiny little scene to be like, okay, here's their introduction into the war, and then they're going to become part of the team later on. Characters such as Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, or Hawkeye, or Vision and Scarlet Witch. And let's just say that they toy around with something there that is lifted from the comics that I wasn't expecting them to kind of approach, but they did, and it made for a very compelling trait to these characters. And that's what makes this movie so badass, and why it really keeps you on edge, is because you care about everybody, and almost every single one of these characters is built up, especially Bucky, aka Winter Soldier. If you didn't get enough of him in the movie that's titled after him, Winter Soldier, and a good sense of his background history, you will in this movie. It's in this movie where you'll genuinely feel for him. I felt bad for this guy, and I really wanted to root for him, but there's scenes where it's just tough to watch him being in it, especially by the end, where a stunning revelation is put in the forefront, and it's a heart-churning twist that comes later on in the movie, similar to how Winter Soldier did. However, what Civil War does with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is more on an intimate level. How groundbreaking Winter Soldier was for the entire MCU and on a global scale, Civil War does the same thing, but more so within the intimacy of the team, where nobody's going to be the same by the end of this movie. It does the same thing that the Winter Soldier did, but to a smaller scale, but a much more personal one. Now, we'll say that a couple characters were underutilized, but even then, there's some where I'm like, oh man, I wish that they would have been in the movie more, but then when I think about it, I'm like, no, actually, I think they're just fine as they are. They were just perfect as they were, such as Agent 13, Crossbones. We got so many characters in this movie, but Joe and Anthony Russo knew which ones needed to be in the movie the most, and which ones just needed to be in there for like a good 10-15 minutes, and then they're gone. The only one that is a little strange would be, I think Everett Ross was his name. I can't. It was Ross. Everett Ross. I don't know. But Martin Freeman's character, Bilbo Baggins, is in this movie. I don't know why, because he plays that role that could have been played by anybody, so to cast such a mainstay actor like him is just a little distracting, especially when you make him an American. I don't know why he needs to be American. His accent came in here and there, so I'm like, why just made him British? Anyways, besides that, the action sequences are amazing. In my opinion, they're a step up from that of Winter Soldier. Joe and Anthony Russo film action sequences in a way where they update they upgrade or they raise the shutter speed on the camera, so everything looks like it's jerky. It kind of looks like shaky cam, but then if you look closely with a keen eye, it's not shaky cam. They just crank up the shutter speed so that it has that jerkiness effect that's a little a little daunting, but at the same time, they're not shaking. You can still see what is going on. You can still see each punch landing, and even when they include some heavy CGI, that's where they stabilize the camera and realize that something needs to be put in clear vision so that you can tell what's going on, which is what really has me excited for them tackling Avengers Infinity War, at least that's what it's called for now, later on down the line, because they're taking over that movie, and that's going to require some heavy-duty CGI when you bring in Thanos, Star-Lord, and possibly Captain Marvel, all these different people, over like 60-something odd heroes going up against Thanos. It's going to be insane, and I'm looking forward to it. But the intimacy of Civil War is really what shook me from this film, because you have best friends fighting, and at first it's kind of playful, and that's another thing that this movie it excels at, is the building up. They don't just start fighting right at the get-go, or just progress. They're doing their own little thing, and then all of a sudden they're fighting. Not unlike this other movie that came out this year. No, we see the conflict start from the very beginning, and they start off with just an argument, and then they start fighting, but they're not taking it too seriously, and then after that we hit that peak where just the emotion is high, and you've been following these characters for so long that's what makes it heartbreaking to see Iron Man go up against Captain America. You do want to see who wins at the end, but at the same time you don't want to, because you feel for both of them, and that's where this movie really packs its punch. If there was any nitpicks, because honestly, on my way home, even long after having watched the film today, I was trying to pick apart the movie and see what worked and what didn't, and there's a couple of nitpicks here and there where I'm like, okay, that could have changed, but still, the only thing that really stuck with me, and even then it's a very small complaint, is that similar to, okay, let's just face it, I'm comparing this to Batman vs. Superman. I am. Whatever, alright? Crucify me, I don't care. What this movie does falter in, that is a little similar to Batman vs. Superman, is that, without going into spoilers, let's just say that in the beginning we do get presented this little thing called the Sokovia Accords, which is this little agreement with the army and the government for superheroes to be put in check. And you see this in the trailer, it's evident. This, however, becomes kind of like the background of things, and then the story primarily focuses on Bucky and Iron Man saying he has to be taken in, or Captain saying, hey, let me handle this. And that's kind of where the actual friction between these two teams really resides upon. And that whole thing with the superheroes being put in check and being listed under the government's supervision and all that kind of stuff, that kind of becomes a little secondary until the very end, when it gets brought back in and certain things come into play, and certain people are put in different places, like the pieces of the chessboard are put in play for future Marvel movies. By the way, hardly any references to any of the other movies. I mean, there's a line here and there, but there's no like, hey, look, this is what's coming. Which I guess brings me to my other nitpick. There are end credit scenes, 2 of them, one in the middle and one at the very end, and both of them are cool, but they lack that wow factor. Like the end credit sequences for the Marvel movies, they're starting to dwindle a little bit, because I guess we are starting to face superhero fatigue, so it's kind of like, okay, that's neat, but you really need to bring us something more. Otherwise, you should go back to just doing one end credit scene at this point. Anyways, besides that, Civil War was everything that I wanted it to be. Great performances, great action sequences, filled with an awful lot of moments where I'm like, man, I wish that they would do that. Oh my god, they did it. They did it, and it just leaves you with your jaw dropped to the ground, especially the airport scene. I can't wait to watch that over and over again. I actually want to watch this entire movie over and over again. I really do. I want to watch it a second time. Hopefully, coming up in the next week or so. Besides that, the little nitpicks I had, great film, great sequences, great pacing, great fluidity with all these different things that managed to be blended well in together. I'm really trying to see what else I can find about it that I didn't like, but besides that little nitpick of the registration act or whatever becoming more of like in the background, this is definitely one of the Marvel's Phase 3 highlights. And for that, I give Captain America Civil War a solid 9 out of 10, and I'm hoping to go see it again soon. If not, definitely will be purchasing it on Blu-ray later on this year. So if you have seen Captain America Civil War, that's a pretty dumb question, Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie. Keep it spoiler free because this is a spoiler free review. But if you do want to hear my very spoilery in-depth thoughts about the film, then be sure to check out my spoiler cast on SoundCloud, which is going to go up either by the time this review is up, and if not, it's definitely going to be up by the end of Sunday, by the end of the weekend for sure, because time's a little strange right now, so hopefully I can get to it ASAP. If not, for sure by the end of Sunday. Continuously check out my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/DarkSpiderDavid. Follow me on there, and I will be posting my spoiler cast of Captain America Civil War, where I'll be talking about everything. I just got to put my thoughts together and go down the checklist of, okay, I got to talk about that, So anyways, in there, I will pick apart everything, including Black Panther, including Spider-Man, including the fight between Captain America and Iron Man, and all that good stuff. In the meantime, subscribe to my channel if you're a newcomer, like my video, comment, all that kind of crazy stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.